Howdy, YouTube, and you rowdy werewolves that just got turned back into humans. Am I right, or I guess no? I know you've been human the whole time. Anyway, hi, welcome to part 10. We're in the double digits. I appreciate so much that all of you are here. Thanks for taking the time to watch this playthrough all the way through. I have been so grateful for all of the comments and feedback and all that fun stuff about this run. And I hope you continue to stick it out with us as we go through it. I'm really also excited for what's going to happen tonight. As always, like the stream, leave a comment if you like, follow me in all the links in the description. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. I swear, if you've been watching my playthroughs and you're not subbed to the channel, I beg of you to consider hitting the sub button. It's going to take you 2 seconds. Guess what? Watch this. Watch this. I'm going to give you 2 seconds to do it. There's not going to be any content. 2 seconds. Ready? Get ready. Hover your mouse over the subscribe button. 1, 2, 3. I even gave you an extra second. Okay, cool. You clicked it. Awesome. Thank you for doing that. I appreciate it immensely. All right. If you ever want to catch us live on Twitch, 9:30 p.m. Pacific time, would love to see you. Let's rock. A little extra sass. Somebody unsubbed by accident because they hovered it over their subscription button and then they clicked it and then it unsubbed and it was a whole nightmare. That was you. Just, check on it. Make sure it wasn't you. All right. That's enough meta talk. Let's figure this out. So, Zathrien is now dead. The Dalish elves do not know that. It will be interesting to see how they respond to it. They could very well be pissed at me. They could divert this over to blaming me for what's happened. Because I'm the anomaly that came into the camp and stirred all this shit up. We have no idea what happened up on the surface. Maybe the humans went out and ran into their camp. No idea. Regardless, we have got some real intrigue coming our way tonight. Seems loud. Zathrien ran to the convenience store. Went to go get a pack of smokes in the temple. So we got a lot of dead stuff in here, which... Oh, that's... Okay, that's interesting how that works. That's nice. Skyrim did that too, where you get the nice little shortcut out of the temple. It's fabulous. Gather your party and venture forth. Yes. Back to the Dalish camp. I think is over here. Okay, so do we go to the forest? I don't know. We're going to go to the forest just to see if there's anything left there that we maybe missed. Tree still has a quest marker on him, which I don't... Return to Arthas with news. Yeah, let's catch up on this. Return to Arthas with news about Delilah. You met a werewolf who said she was once an elf called Delilah. She wanted you to bring her scarf to her husband. But you traded it to the strange hermit in the woods. Whether Arthas might still believe your story is impossible to say. We'll see. Rare Ironbark. You found some Ironbark. Cool. Alora's Hala. Alora, the Dalish master of the antlered Hala beast, is concerned that one of the herd has been infected. You examine the beast. I don't have the survival skill. Complete the ancient ritual. The earthen tablet you recovered is covered in writing, perhaps Elven. Most of the lettering is faded, making it indecipherable. There are numerous pictographs, however, which seem to indicate a kind of cleansing ritual. Yeah, I don't... That's an interesting one. I don't really know what to do with that. Turn to the elves and tell them of Zathrien's sacrifice. Zathrien, after years of anger, has finally let go of the hatred. He ended the spell that bound the Lady of the Forest to Witherfang, and with that ended his own life. The werewolf curse has been lifted off both wolves and the elves. It's time to return to the Dalish and tell them of his sacrifice. Ooh, I could talk about him as a hero, or I could talk about him as the man who perpetuated all of this nonsense. What inspired you to pick this squad? So, I pick my squad mostly based on diplomacy rather than from a combat standpoint. This is more of me choosing people who aren't Morgan and Sten, because Morgan and Sten tend to make my life pretty difficult when I'm trying to talk to people. So I'm trying to make sure that I at all times have the ability to really work through conversation the way that I want to. And Morgan and Sten do not really contribute to that. I appreciate them for who they are, but they don't help. Also, I want to go to the... Right? Oh, okay. So it was the north exit that took me to the temple. Another bear? Wow, that's a lot of bears, dude. That's a lot of bears. Oh, chat. Oh, wow. Why? Why? Oh, my God. Too many bears. What, the werewolves all go away and you guys decide you need to take over as the masters of the forest? I do appreciate the opportunity you provided for my chat to talk in bear puns, though. So thank you for that. Back to the Dalish camp.
It is done. The essence of the wolf's heart has banished all traces of cursed blood from the hunters. It is too bad that Zathrien had to die. I felt it when he departed. I think he was ready to go.
You know, I don't think it really matters that much for me to sow seeds of contempt for Zathrien here. I think with his death, what's going to happen is a lot of the elves in the camp are going to make their own meaning out of what happened in terms of, like, his death. So what did he mean to them? Because when people die, it represents what's called a cutoff. It's an emotional cutoff. And what a cutoff does, from a theoretical perspective, is it freezes in place whatever anxiety and whatever unresolved issues you might have had with that person prior to them perishing. So with Zathrien gone, what this is going to highlight for a lot of people is how they felt about him, how they feel relative to him, and what kind of loose ends they never tied up with him. This is often why people search for closure when people die. I don't really think it's a great idea for me to jump in here and just be like, oh yeah, guy was kind of a dick and that whole thing started for him. In part because it's not really going to do much for the elves. Unless everybody here is like, man, something felt weird about that guy. Really wish we knew what was going on. Like, if collectively they said that, I could be like, well, I kind of know. But it's not really my place to just jump right in and do that. Because then they're also going to feel terrible about the fact that they followed a guy who was perpetuating the curse that they were fighting against. And at the end of the day, we got to fight the blight. So what I'm going to go with here, because if I say he was a hero in the end, then she's going to be like, why? And also, that's bullshit. If she says, did you know about his connection to the curse? I'm giving her a lot of information I just really don't know that she needs to have right now, unless she asks me directly, in which case I'll answer the question. So for now, we're going to say, I'm sure he was. I'm sure he was ready to go. Nice, easy statement there.
It will be difficult to fill Zathrien's shoes. He was our keeper for many centuries, and he will be sorely missed. But I am keeper now. Let me say it officially then. I hereby swear to uphold the terms of the ancient contract our people formed with the Grey Wardens. Call, and we shall come, with great speed and purpose, and we shall strike at your foes. This I swear.
Thanks.
It has been a long time since the Dalish marched to war, but I trust that in the end, we shall make a difference for you.
Hell yeah. Keeper Zathrien. Let's see. Long ago, in retribution for an attack against his clan, Zathrien unleashed a terrible curse. He summoned a spirit into this world and set it upon the humans who had wronged him. The spirit did not simply slaughter Zathrien's enemies, it transformed them into monstrous beasts. In time, however, the werewolves he had created regained their minds, and they sought out the one responsible for their suffering, turning the curse upon Zathrien's own people. At the urging of the Lady of the Forest, Mick persuaded Zathrien to give up his own life, returning the werewolves to their human forms and saving the elves who had been inflicted with the curse. It appears that Witherfang has two sides, as nature does. One is the wolf, savage and male. The other is the Lady of the Forest, gentle and female. It was made in 2009. I don't know that it holds up that great as far as it relates to that, but whatever, we'll move on. Witherfang is both beast and beauty, terrible and peace-loving. The lady has guided the werewolves of the Brazilian forest to come to peace with their nature as she has. Alrighty. Creatures. Arcane horror. Upon ascending to the second floor of the tower, we were greeted by a gruesome sight. A ragged collection of bones wearing the robes of one of the senior enchanters. I had known her for years, watched her raise countless apprentices, and now she was a mere puppet for some demon. Transcribed from a tale told by a Templar in Antiva City 713 Storm. Demons, of course, have no form in our world. When they enter, either where the veil is particularly thin or through blood magic summoning, they must take possession of a body. When a pride demon takes control of the corpse of a mage, an arcane horror is born. Although they appear to be little more than bones, these are fierce creatures possessing not only all the spellcasting abilities of a living mage, but also the capacity to heal and even command their animated corpses. I was just wondering if this is true to life. Is this a real way someone may react to the death of their chief? Sure. Yeah. Depends on a lot of factors. Depends on the customs of the culture. Depends on the nature of that person's leadership to the rest of the clan. I mean, there's a lot that could go into that. But yeah, it's absolutely a possibility. Alright, chat, let's see if he believes me. Poor guy.
You have returned. Is there any chance you have news of Delilah?
I do.
You have news? Have you found her? Are you certain?
He's dead. Probably the best way to deliver that news. I think he was probably expecting it. She's just dead, man.
Dead? What happened to her? Was it as I thought?
There is a very interesting dynamic that humans tend to have with death that is in some ways culturally loaded, where the reality of death tends to scare a lot of people. And we often perceive directness as it relates to death. I mean, even going so far as to saying the word dead, just she's dead. We hear that and we tend to go, ugh, because it's so final when we say that. And so linguistically, we've created a lot of words that soften the blow. So people, she's passed away, she's moved on, she's no longer with us, stuff like that. The reality is, when you have a person who is potentially conceptualized already that this person might be dead, it's okay to be direct. It's okay to say she's dead, and then you can soften it afterwards. Like you can be there for that person. I mean, you can warmly. Now, that's not to say you can't use a person's language, but there's a skittishness sometimes around death where people get weird about how they talk about it. And it actually alleviates some of the anxiety on the whole about talking like things like death when we just name the taboo for what it is. She died. That's a fact. It's a very real thing. Doesn't mean you have to be a dick about it. You don't have to be cold with how you deliver it. But it's okay to say something like, yeah, she died. People hear that harshly, but it doesn't mean that it's actually harsh to say. And then you can kind of follow it up and be like, yeah, you know, I'm really sorry to hear that, man. It was rough to see her. I was there when she died, or however we want to handle this. Was it as I thought? She was a werewolf, just as you suspected. She died from the curse. Zathrien told you the truth. I'm going to go with... She didn't die from the curse, actually. She died from my hand. I killed her. So we're going to say she was a werewolf, as you suspected. I don't want to lie to him.
So I was right. But what became of her?
Did let on. I mean, the only way that I would know she... Here's the tricky part about this, is the only way that I would know that she was a werewolf is if she told me, because it's not like the werewolves are particularly identifiable outside of their, like, fur color. So I've basically let on that she was alive when I found her. So we're gonna just go with the truth here. Facts is facts. 99, thank you for the sub. I really appreciate it, and thank you for your kind words. I killed her naturally. Oh Jesus, come on, Oh, I hate all of these options. I hate all of these options. The naturally at the end of I killed her ruins the entire thing. It's so dismissive of course I killed her. Of course I killed your wife. That naturally puts a qualifier on it that I really don't like. It also just makes me seem like she died, Arthas, but not before she sent her love. Like, I'm gonna have to go that way, and then if he probes me more, I'll say I killed her.
She told you that? Yes. That is what she would do.
Oh.
At least she is at peace. Here is the amulet, as I promised.
Thank you, brother.
Now I should go and make arrangements. I must mourn my wife as is proper. Dareth Shiral. Fare you well.
Awesome. Alright. We did it. Well done. Items received. Let's take a look at this little amulet that he gave us. The amulet. Painted skyball? Is that what he gave me? I got so many gifts in here, man. Silver medallion. Yada, yada, yada. There we go. Arthas' pendant. Plus 4% spell resistance. Oh man, Liliana, we're don't worry, friend. We're gonna get you healed up here. Zevran's looking terrible too. Yikes. A hooties. Out of the craft. What is this? This carved wooden head represents June, the elven. Oh. June, god of the craft. We dedicate all our crafts to June, for it is he who taught the people to bend the branches of the trees to make our bows and to fashion coverings of furs and ironbark. Without June, would we have the Aravel or the harnesses for our Hala? When the people were young, we wandered the forests without purpose. We drank from streams and ate the berries and nuts that we could find. We did not hunt, for we had no bows. We wore nothing, for we had no knowledge of spinning or needlecraft. We shivered in the cold nights and went hungry through the winters when all the world was covered in ice and snow. Then Silas, the Hearthkeeper, came and gave us a fire and taught us how to feed it with wood. June taught us to fashion bows and arrows and knives so that we could hunt. We learned to cook the flesh of the creatures we hunted over Silas's fire, and we learned to clothe ourselves in their furs and skins, and the people were no longer cold and hungry, as told by Gisharel, keeper of the Relafarin clan of the Dalish elves. Well, now I want to find more of these things.
We are working hard to make enough equipment for all of the hunters. Our armaments will be superior to anything else you find on the battlefield.
Awesome. I found some Ironbark, man.
Truly? Let me see. Yes, that is indeed Ironbark, and a substantial quantity of it as well. Well done. An agreement is an agreement, and I will craft something from this wood for you. What would you like? A bow, or perhaps a breastplate?
Both would be more appropriate, geez. Breastplate sounds pretty good. I like the idea of that.
Moving in. I will craft it myself. Watch if you prefer. It will not take long.
Love to watch. What's up, Jugger?
And I've reformed the wood to my will. A Dalish breastplate for you. May it serve you well.
Thank you, sir. Please be better than what I'm currently wearing, because what I'm currently wearing is great. Plus 3 armor, nature resistance, plus 25 mana or stamina. Hell yeah. Oh, baby. Oh! Oh, that is just gorgeous. Now, what's a guy got to do to get some injury kits? Look at that armor. That armor is so fabulous. I'm a happy man right now. Injury kits. Oh, I guess if we go back to our camp, we'll be able to get those. Check the quest log again, and then complete the ancient ritual. Yeah, I mean that's gonna be interesting. I do not know exactly what to do with that. We'll have to maybe return to that at some point, because I do want to go back to the ruins once I have a rogue that can lockpick enough, just to see what kind of stuff we can get there. All right, it seems that we've cleared the camp. Let's go.
You were the Grey Warden who broke the curse. I demand to know what happened to the werewolves. Where did they go?
They left, they're no longer werewolves. The curse was broken.
That makes no difference. Those monsters killed my husband. They killed so many of my people. They have Dalish blood on their hands. If they are human once more, that shall make it all the easier to take vengeance for their crimes. Tell me where they are.
Remember, man, see, this is where these are such important moments. These are such important moments from a teaching perspective. Because this is a clash of representation and assumption. We have got to remember to step outside ourselves for a minute. She wasn't there. We know what happened because we were there. But we can't just expect that all of a sudden everybody else is going to believe us when we come out of here and tell them what happened. For years, this woman has seen werewolves fight her people. And the sad part about this is that she was following Zathrien while she was doing it, and heard Zathrien's stories as the leader, whom they all seem to unconditionally follow. So, when you see that Zathrien's gone, you hear that the curse is lifted, the people that she knows in the present and in the past of her own life have indeed been harmed by werewolves. The werewolves are not totally innocent here. They did go infect the Dalish to try to get Zathrien to do something about it, when they could have just tried to get to him. So they're not totally scot-free on this. But of course she'd be pissed at the werewolves. Of course she wants these people to pay for their crimes. Because she's Zathrien's wife and presumably is intertwined with him in a meaningful way, this becomes all the more tricky. Because what we have to tell her, which we know is the truth because we were there but she was not, is that Zathrien is the reason that all of this happened in the first place. That the wolves themselves, though they did hurt the people that you care about, they were doing that in part due to retaliation from a long ago event that happened to your husband. Well, in death, people like to generally become advocates of the dead. So because she doesn't have Zathrien here to be able to place that accountability into, she is more likely to double down on what the notion of Zathrien was to her prior to him dying. Like, she's gonna operate off of what happened, like what she knew of him before he died. Which means I'm an enemy here if I advocate for the werewolves. At the same time, I hold all the cards. I don't have to tell her where they went. But I just don't know how much she knows about Zathrien doing this. So for me to say Zathrien wanted vengeance too, look what it did, doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, even though there's a persuade in parentheses there, which suggests that there's another dialogue option that we get or another path that we get by using that, that's not what I would say here. I would never say that to her. It could be a lady who lost her husband to a werewolf attack too. I guess that's true. I don't know that this is Zathrien's wife. Regardless, this woman is operating from a template that is short-sighted. I guess that's true. So this is a wife of a person who was killed by a werewolf. Regardless, her representation of this entire mess is not the same as ours. And we can't expect her to know what we saw. We just can't. So, if I say they left the forest peacefully, that doesn't make a lot of sense either, because she just made it very clear that she's going to chase after them no matter where they are. Me lying and saying nowhere and I killed them, I suppose that might calm her down, but I don't know that that's actually going to mitigate any of the anger that she has in this way. I don't think she's going to go, oh, okay, then I'm done. I'm not going to say that Zathrien wanted vengeance too, because that polarizes me against her. So what I'm going to choose here is to say I'm not going to tell you that. You can be mad at me all you want. I'm not going to tell you.
I see. So you side with murderers, do you? You draft into your ridiculous war, but the true criminals are allowed to run free as if they never did anything wrong. If I cannot have their blood, then I will have yours. In the name of the god of vengeance, Elgarhan, I demand justice!
Okay, fine. It's a real shame. It's a real shame. I mean, she attacked me. For one, she had it in her head already. It was done. It was in her head already. Somebody's going to pay for this. So, I know that I'm strong enough that if you're going to come at me, I'm going to be able to take you down. So I'm not really worried about the consequence there. Me saying they left the forest peacefully, based on that response to me, the lack of curiosity there about, well, why aren't you going to tell me? She just saw that as an act of aggression. I can't trust that she wasn't going to go on a warpath and kill a whole bunch of humans in her wake. I don't know that that was going to happen, but the fact of the matter is, like, I'm not going to tell you where they are. Not based on what you just told me you're going to do. You don't have all the information. We need to talk about this. And then she goes, nope, act of aggression. All right. Now you're dead. Oy vey. This isn't where I wanted to go. I wanted to leave the camp. Dranios, thank you very much for the sub. I appreciate that very much. And I am glad to have you all here. Thank you all for taking the time to hang out with me, whether you're watching the VOD on YouTube or whether you're here live. I'm sure it probably is Stenosis, but I'm not going to make dialogue decisions based on the mechanics of the game, as much as I can help it. So I don't want to, you know, be like, oh, okay, well, I know that Persuade's going to get me where I want to go, so I'm going to do it if that's not what I would say. Always a tricky. It's tricky sometimes in how I have to play these because I want to use it to illustrate stuff, and I also do need the game to do what I want it to actually do.
So, are you a very religious man, Alistair? I'm curious. I believe I heard you say you were raised in an abbey.
I was raised in a castle. I was schooled in the abbey. As far as being religious, I don't know. Not especially. What about you? Not in your line of work, I expect.
Why do you say that? I happen to be quite devoted in my way, as most Antivans are.
Truly? But you kill people. For money.
And I ask forgiveness for my sins from the Maker every chance I get. What manner of monster do you think I am?
But you ask forgiveness and then you go right on with your sinning.
The Maker has never objected. Why should you?
I have no idea.
Well, there you go. Perhaps you ought to think about asking for a little forgiveness yourself, huh?
I'm not going to touch that one. I'm sure many of you know where I'm going to fall on that one. Let's go to the camp.
The Blight. How will you end it?
Hi, Sten. I thought we just asked the Darkspawn to please leave. Alright. Sten appreciates clarity. Clarity and conciseness. I'm not going to play around with him and ask him a question in response to this. I'm just going to be very clear. We have to fight the Archdemon.
Is that all? It is surrounded by an ocean of Darkspawn. How will you reach it? If you reach it, how will you slay it? You say you are a Grey Warden. I have heard stories of this order.
Yes, who's anxious? Sten. He has a very unique way of showing it, but that's immediately how I read this. Sten's anxious. Which goes against his nature. His nature is one of stoicism, of clarity, of conciseness, brevity. To hear Sten ask these questions and to have this level of urgency suggests to me that he is looking to leadership to mitigate some of his fear. This is what external reassurance seeking looks like sometimes as it relates to anxiety. It's not a bad thing. I'm not pathologizing Sten here. Me saying that Sten's anxious isn't a bad thing. It's just a reflection of his emotional experience. Sten is not one who names it in a conventional way. Sten is not one to walk up to me and to go, "Hi, Grey Warden, I'm really anxious. Can we talk about it?" No. Sten's going to come at me and he's going to ask a lot of very logistical questions. Questions that if you take them at face value, you go, okay, he's just trying to figure out the lay of the land. Maybe that's the case. The urgency and the cadence with which he brings that to me is juxtaposed against his tendency to speak in one-word answers, which tells me that there's some sort of amplified emotional experience. And he's coming to me to try to help him reassure so that the anxiety goes down. That's not a terrible thing to do in the short term. It maybe helps him calm himself down. If he continues to rely on that and he approaches me constantly for the same stuff, that's where we start to call it excessive reassurance seeking. That's actually going to make his anxiety worse over time because he doesn't learn how to monitor his own. So he may know he's anxious, he may not. But this is a way of presenting it. And there are a lot of folks who will present their anxiety this way. If you can catch it and recognize that you're asking a lot of questions because you're seeking external reassurance, you should just name to a person, hey, I'm feeling anxious right now. And this is where all of this is coming from. And it gives them something to work with. You say you're a Grey Warden. I have heard stories of this order. What have you heard?
Great strategists and peerless warriors. That is what we hear of the Wardens. So far, I am not impressed.
Now, I could take that as a personal shot, but I don't actually think it is. We have to take Sten's origin into account. It's going to seem to an extent like I'm making excuses for Sten, and that I'm allowing him to be very terse with me, but I don't actually take offense to this. I legitimately believe that Sten is coming here to give me information. He approached me. Generally, I have to approach him. So this is already a meaningful engagement because Sten came to me first. So when he says great strategists and peerless warriors, that's what I hear of the Warden. So far, I'm not impressed. I think he's giving me feedback. He's basically saying your way of approaching things is amplifying my anxiety. It is amplifying my uncertainty of our ability to accomplish what we need. So I need to see you be very sure, because if you're sure, then that makes me feel better. So if he pokes at me a little bit and I come back a little bit more steadfast here, I think that probably works well for him. So what I'm going to say to him, instead of going like, was that a personal shot? Is this about me? No, this is about Sten's anxiety. So I'm going to be, again, in his language, very clear and concise with how I respond to him. I'm not here to impress you.
Evidently not. It remains only to see what you are here for.
Sten approves, +6. Sometimes depersonalizing conversations makes a huge difference because you can be a lot more calculated with how you engage with people. We work with what we got with him. I'm a leader. As a leader, it is important for me to understand my constituents. Because Sten at any time might say to me, I'm going to go. I'm going to leave. I don't trust this, and I'm not going to follow it. And what am I going to do? Stop him? No. I mean, he pledged his service to me. Cool, but that's all symbolic. It's not actually real. So, this is why the most important skill of communication is listening, is observing and looking for patterns. Because when you observe, when you listen, when you look for patterns with people, you have a lot more of a powerful engagement in a conversation because you work with what you know and what you've seen. Sten has given us all the information we need in order to learn how to interact with him. And subsequently, we have also given him information about how to interact with us, which is why he gave us more there than he ever has. So that was him reaching across the aisle in his own Sten-like way. And I can appreciate that, and I can work with it, and I can make sure that I'm not taking it as a personal affront. In part because I very much believe that if that was a personal affront, Sten would have told me. He would have made it very clear. I am personally taking a shot at you right now. He didn't do that. He's anxious. He's unsure how we're going to handle this. He's by himself. He doesn't have any of his own people around him. I'm his leader. He's asking questions. He's giving me feedback. I can accept that. I think while Sten is callous, he knows that you are being one of only 2 Grey Wardens means that they have to do a lot more to defeat the Blight. Not meaning it is a slight, but rather a way to give them engaged on how they're faring so far. Yeah, exactly. It's feedback. That's all. And as a leader, I have to take feedback. I can't get defensive about feedback. It does nobody any good. So I really appreciate that Sten was willing to come to me and approach me. It's a big deal. Alright, I want to buy some injury kits and make sure everybody is... Or wait, does everybody heal automatically when you come to the... Nice, alright. That's good. I still need to buy some injury kits if he's got them.
If there's anything I can do for you, please tell me.
You see your way.
I'm sure you'll be pleased with the goods my boy and I have collected, and with your discount.
Yes, thank you. Injury kits. And he gives me a really nice... Oh, that's my inventory. Yeah, all the health poultices. And give me all your injury kits. Inventory is full, which is fine, because I got a lot of shit to sell, man. Oh, I'm not picking up those anymore. These are worthless. To me, they're worthless. I realize in the grand scheme of the game, they're probably fine. But werewolf pelts. Wolf pelts. Vellum. Documents. Sell the quartz. Greenstone. Garnet. Engraved silver bowl. Fluorspar. Malachite. Topaz. Emerald. Ruby, diamond. Good stuff. All right, we're dumping some. I really gotta get rid of some shit here. I gotta be smart here. Large flawed natural crystal. Interesting. Exactly what that means. Chantry robe, blood dragon plate, flint mail, get rid of that. Leather gloves, get rid of that. Soldier's helm, get rid of that. Ear, longsword, not useful. Borrowed longsword, okay. Darkspawn mace, bow, goodbye. Goodbye, goodbye. Goodbye, goodbye. I do have a lot of gifts. A lot of gifts. I do think I want to give... First of all, I can equip one of these, like, cool little, like, dog patterns. On Dirk. And I think I can give Dirk... Dirk an ox bone. Good boy. Give him a lamb bone too. Good boy. Just fed my dog. Okay. Alistair.
What do you need? Ask away.
Alright, we're done with his question line. Okay. Zevran.
Here I am.
Can we answer some questions?
Oh, this should be good. Go ahead.
Tell me a little bit about Antiva.
Oh, you wish to know about Antiva, do you? The only way to truly appreciate it would be to go there. It is a warm place, not cold and harsh like this Ferelden. In Antiva it rains often, but the flowers are always in bloom. Or so the saying goes.
You don't like Ferelden?
It is fine enough with its dogs and its mud. The people are spirited, even if they can't tell the difference between an assassin and a mere killer. I hail from the glorious Antiva City, home to the royal palace. It is a glittering gem amidst the sand, my Antiva City. Do you come from someplace comparable?
I'm not from any glittering gem, no.
No? That is too bad. If you were, then surely you would spend as much time boasting about it as I do. You know what is most odd? We speak of my homeland, and for all its wine and its dark-haired beauties and the lilo flutes of the minstrels, I miss the leather the most.
This I gotta hear.
I mean the smell. For years, I lived in a tiny apartment near Antiva City's leather-making district, in a building where the crows stored their youngest recruits, packed in like crates. I grew accustomed to the stench, even though the humans complained of it constantly. To this day, the smell of fresh leather is what reminds me most of home more than anything else.
Scent is the sense that is tied longest to memory. Fun fact. Humans will recognize scents so easily. It'll take you back 40 years if you smell something properly. So when Zevlon is talking about this, he's talking about a very real phenomenon. He associated that smell of leather with something meaningful, which we make these associations all the time. That's classical conditioning, essentially. So he has made this pleasant association. He's conditioned to think about home, and then has spun it in a positive light when he smells leather. And so he becomes a really nice experience for him when he smells it, even if it might not be for other people. This happens to all of us, without our permission in some cases. I find it to be very interesting. Not bizarre at all. You sound like you've been away from home forever.
Oh, not so long, I know. It is my first time away from Antiva, however, and the thought of never returning makes me think of it constantly. Before I left, I was tempted to spend what little coin I possessed on leather boots I spotted in a store window. Finest Antivan leather. Perfect craftsmanship. But I was a fool to leave them. I thought, Zevran, you can buy them when you return as a reward for a job well done. More the fool I, no?
Your home's still there, dude. You can still go back and get them.
True, and it's a comforting thought. One simply never knows what is to come next. How could I have suspected I would end up defeated by a handsome Grey Warden? A man who then spares my life? I could not.
Is that right? Is that right? I heard that little word you slipped in there, huh? 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 I don't need to make a big deal out of it. I'm not really worried about it. Like, well, there's nothing really to worry about it. He finds me handsome. Cool. That's awesome. Doesn't matter what my sexual orientation is. He tells me I'm handsome. I appreciate the compliment. Thanks. In your eye, you find me to be pleasant to look at. Cool. Now, I do have to acknowledge, though, that that dynamic here is male to male, so I don't find this to be particularly threatening, because it's I mean, there's still problematic dynamics, but there are more heterosexual dynamics at play. If I was a woman and he was to say that, it gets a little bit more dicey, just because of the wider social dynamics around something like that, and particularly if he was in a position of power. But because I'm a dude, hey, it's not as threatening, and thus I can take it a little bit more in stride. Everyone makes mistakes.
Even Grey Wardens who spare the lives of assassins? Understood. Now, if it is all the same to you, I would prefer not to speak more of Antiva. It makes me wistful and hungry for a proper meal.
By the way, him calling me handsome doesn't necessarily mean it's a come on. Like, it doesn't mean he was hitting on me. Until he makes, like, an actual move, I'm not going to worry too much about it.
Here I am.
Care to answer some more questions?
This should be good. Go ahead.
What's your opinion of the Dalish?
I know little enough of the Dalish other than the fact that my mother was one, or so I was told. She had fallen in love with an elven woodcutter and accompanied him back to the city, leaving her clan behind for good. And there, of course, the woodcutter died of some filthy disease and my mother was forced into prostitution to pay off his debts. All is tale in the book.
Jesus, that sucks. Wow, what a... I can't believe BioWare even put this in here to say that. Good God. Is the woodcutter your father? I'm going to keep asking questions. I'm not going to make value judgments, and I'm certainly not going to say the most insensitive shit I've ever seen. Was the woodcutter your father?
How should I know? My mother was a whore, as you'll recall. None of the other elven boys in the whorehouse knew their fathers. I was not so unusual. I didn't know my mother either, of course. She died giving birth to me. My first victim, as it were. We were all raised communally by the whores. It was a happy enough existence, ignoring the occasional beating. Until eventually I was sold to the crows. I brought a good price, so I hear.
My guess is that Zathrien heard that. The whole my first victim thing. And grabbed onto it. And it probably helped articulate a sensation or a very simple idea he may have had as a kid. That it was indeed his fault that his mother died. And my entire existence is to the demise of my mother. That's a heavy thing to carry. People get really up in their head about stuff like that. It's not his fault. It's not. But he's taken accountability for it in a way that I would have to believe has woven its way into some of the ways that he conceptualizes the world around him. And he has, in some ways, internalized, like, I'm a killer. I'm an assassin. I killed my mother, who I think is one of the more important people that I could have had in my life. And we see, I think, the way that he diminishes the... You want to call it sadness or emotional intensity of the fact that he never knew his mother. He diminishes it in two ways. One is to say that she was a victim of him, that he killed her. Victim is a bit of an objectifiable word, and so is whore. So when he says, like, oh yeah, my mom was a whore, he's basically like, yeah. But doing that allows her to remain as an object in his mind that he killed, and if he's an assassin, what he likely does on the regular is objectify his victims. So as a way to separate from the empathy that one would experience, Zathrien strikes me as a quite sensitive guy. And I mean that in the sense of, like, the way he talked about the leather, the way he talks finally about his memories of his childhood in Antiva. He is not a cold-hearted, disconnected dude. So he has to manufacture internal distance from the people and the people around him, and particularly the people he cares about. And one of the most easy and conventional ways to do that is through objectification. So we see that language coming out where he's essentially trying to ward off people from getting closer to his sensitivity, but that has also created a circumstance where he himself doesn't even necessarily get in touch with his own sensitivity. So his veneer, his charm, is really good because it makes him that much more impenetrable. It allows him to control engagements. It allows him to make sure he's not vulnerable. Him sharing this with me suggests a level of trust in me. But there's a lot of that distance for Zathrien. Because he didn't necessarily have a primary attachment figure that he could load security into and form a secure base with and all these other things. So objectify the world, you stay distant from it, it doesn't hurt as much. I don't have to get closer to how it actually feels that I don't have my mom around and that she died in childbirth. Something that wasn't my fault. But it was probably the fault of, my guess would be circumstance, maybe lack of medical treatment. But he's taking on that burden. If you take that burden on, it permeates into everything you do. And him becoming an assassin all of a sudden makes a lot of sense, because it's in line with the way that he's conceptualized himself. Is all of life as a human about struggling to maintain control? There is a philosophical argument to be made that the answer to that question is yes. Because at the end of the day, as far as we know, the entire point of our existence is to survive. So one of the ways that people survive is by controlling resources, by controlling engagements, by controlling their environment. So almost any situation you find yourself in as a human is a vie for control and power. And we see that in a more sophisticated way on the day-to-day, because we're not like actively, I mean, we are in some ways, but just in a more complex way. Like, we're not actively vying for like that berry bush that's in my territory. We now see some of that territorialness, that power and control, those engagements, they come out in interpersonal relations. They come out in dialogue. They come out in decisions people make that affect other people. Like, all this stuff, at the end of the day, it all comes to power and control. There's a reason we sign contracts. It delineates who has power and who doesn't. Like, the entire existence, yes, is a vie for control and survival. And control is a massive part about survival, a massive component of survivability. So, now, I'm going to take how he presented that information as it is. Even though I am hypothesizing that Zathrien is a more sensitive guy, and I don't mean sensitive as a bad thing. I just mean like he is I think there's a vulnerability to like going there. I'm not going to go too hard on the like empathy with him. I'm more going to take him at his level. I'm going to recognize that the disclosure itself is the point of vulnerability in this engagement, and that we have opportunities for deeper engagement later on. If he continues to share with me, he continues to let me know this, and we build a rapport, I could start to go a little bit deeper with him. I don't think it's a good idea to go ham on the empathy with him right now. So what does this have to do with it? This sounds like pity. I'm so sorry for you, Zathrien. That sounds like pity, and that's going to be very unbecoming to our relationship. And yet you're oddly cheerful about it all. It's me making a value judgment on the way that he's delivered the information. That's also not helpful for this engagement. So what does this have to do with the Dalish? Brings it back to the initial point. It keeps my judgment out of the conversation, and it also serves as some acknowledgement of what he just said, but also trying to figure out how to connect it to the main point of the conversation. So that's why we go here.
My original point is that my mother's Dalish nature was always a point of fascination for me. Through all the years of my crow training, the one thing of my mother's that I possessed was a pair of gloves. They were of Dalish make, I knew that much, and beautiful. I had to keep them hidden, of course, as we were not allowed such things. Eventually, they were discovered, and I never saw them again.
Oh man, all three of these dialogue options suck. I want to know more about that. What was that like for you? Are you looking for them? Is it something you hope to see again? Like, this is a beautiful point where we could engage in so much curiosity for him. And my options are, how do you feel about the Dalish in general, which just bypasses everything he just said to me, which again is a very vulnerable thing. There was a pair of gloves that my dead mother, who died in childbirth with me, had, that I held and kept safe, in secret, because they were super meaningful to me. And then they were discovered and taken from me. I never saw them again. And we're just like, we're going to just blow right past it. Oh, how'd you feel about the Dalish in general? I hate that. Has there been no joy in your life at all? That is, the statement underneath that question is, everything you're saying to me is a bummer, and just be happy. Not good. But you don't think of yourself as Dalish. I don't know that I really understand why I would say that there. Unless he has said to me before, I'm not Dalish, which I guess I could go with, but I hate these first two. So we're going to go with this.
Not at all. I think of myself as Antivan. Still, that did not stop me from running off to join a clan when I drew near Antiva City once. Naturally, the reality did not live up at all to the fantasies I had constructed as a boy, staring at those gloves. But such is life. Come, enough talk of the Dalish. Let us move on.
So his effort to engage, I mean, people do this a lot. His effort to engage with the Dalish is an effort to get to know his mother. When you're a kid, you know that parents are a thing, like you know that parents and guardians are stuff that other people have because he lives in a relational context. You begin to wonder about your own. Well, when you're a kid, if you don't have that available to you, you're going to create your own ideas. You are going to create a very idealized form because that's what kids do. That in no way is going to be a reflection of reality. There might be bits and pieces from things that people told you, but ultimately that's more like your construction. It's no different than when you draw on a piece of paper like a dragon that's like this idealized thing. You're going to do that with your mom in his case. Well, then you only have certain touch points of your ability to get to know her. So you know she was Dalish. You know she had these gloves. Well, let me go check out the Dalish. Let me go join a clan. Let me see if they meet my expectations. Fact of the matter is there's probably a 1% chance that the Dalish he was going to run into were ever going to meet the expectation he had about what they were, because they were in direct conflict with whatever idealized version of his mom that he had. So inherently that group was going to fall short. And if Zevran, I mean, it's not to say that Zevran has to stop idealizing his mom. I'm not trying to pathologize that process for him because it's a very normative process for a child who's lost a parent. It does mean that one of the things that he may find is that there's not as much fulfillment in interpersonal relationships as he might like, because they're being held against an unrealistic template of a symbolically created attachment figure that was created by a child who thinks in very black and white and early developmental way. I know what I'm saying right now is like incredibly complex. If I try to TLDR this, basically what it means is that there's a good chance that Zevran idealized his mother in a huge way, using information that he doesn't actually have, and that all of his other relationships are potentially held to that standard. And if they don't meet that standard, which they inherently won't do, it's going to lead to a lot of disappointment and interpersonal reactions. And where is he going to divert that energy? Perhaps he diverts it to things like gloves, like leather, like boots, material goods. It's a really good way to divert off of interpersonal loss. That's the TLDR on that. I hope that makes sense. Very cool. Love that we get to learn more complexity
Here I am.
about him.
Oh, this should be good. Go ahead.
Why'd you want to leave the crows?
Well, now, I imagine that's a very fair question. Being an assassin, after all, is a living, at least as far as such things go. I was simply never given the opportunity to choose another way. So, if that choice presents itself, why should I not seize upon it?
Okay. What would you rather do?
Now that you mention it, I am not entirely certain. I was but a boy of 7 when I was purchased. For 3 sovereigns, I'm told. Which is a good price, considering I was all ribs and bone and didn't know the pommel of a dagger from the pointy end. The crows buy all their assassins that way. Buy them young, raise them to know nothing else but murder. And if you do poorly in your training, you die.
Oh, that's bad, man. That's really bad. Makes a lot of sense from the crow's perspective. Tons of sense from the crow's perspective. But really bad from a development perspective. Because you have these kids that don't have any kind of figure or anchor in their life, and then you provide that. So you buy them, but they don't really understand the wider context around that. So then you give them purpose, you give them consistency, you give them reliability, you give them caretaking, right? You meet their needs, you feed them, all of these things. You teach them how to fight, you teach them how to defend themselves. Well, that is all the kind of thing that would lead to, it's a great word, Spartan, indoctrination in the sense that they're going to have a very significant amount of loyalty, in part because they don't have diverse representation around things like purpose. So Zevran's entire identity is built around his effectiveness as an assassin. So, because he had to be good at it or else he was going to die. So now his entire survival is contingent upon how good of an assassin he is. So this guy doesn't know any different. Now, I applaud the fact that Zevran was willing to consider another option when we ran into him in the forest. I think that speaks to an extent to the level of intelligence that Zevran has and the level of like self-reflection that he's been willing to engage in. But we blew his entire identity apart when he failed that mission. And so now he is in an immensely vulnerable position because he has to collect himself and determine a new identity. And he has to piecemeal that from what he knew versus what he knows now versus what he wants. Like, we ask him the question, what would you rather do? And he's like, oh, I don't know. I've never thought about it. A lot of anxiety associated with that. So Zevran is likely going to be a person who follows orders, who looks to me and is very trusting in my leadership. There's also a good chance that the more we get to know Zevran, he's going to become more childlike. Because if I provide security, safety, and reliability as a sole figure of leadership rather than as a band of assassins, there is an inherently vulnerable concoction of relational dynamics that's going to happen there. And we may see a little bit of a regression in terms of his presentation because I'm starting to fulfill some needs that he never had met when he was a kid. And this does happen. There are times where people, like adults, very productive, well put together adults, will regress into a childlike state when they start to have a consistent, reliable attachment figure when they didn't have it when they were growing up. And you can work through that. It's not a death sentence or anything like that. But my eyes on Zevran for what that's going to mean. And it may mean that he has a level of emotional bond and connection with me that could be really awesome when we're in camp, but could be really not great when we're out on the battlefield and we have to slay Darkspawn. Because now he's emotionally attached to his leader in a way that extends beyond just the leader-camper dynamic. God, this is good stuff. And that system works?
Of course. You compete against your fellow assassins, and those who survive are rightfully proud of it. In Antiva, being a crow gets you respect. It gets you wealth. Gets you women. And men. Or whatever it is you might fancy. But that does not mean doing what is expected of you always. And it means being expendable. It's a cage, if a gilded cage. Pretty, but confining.
Oh, God. I could go on and on. We could spend the whole night in camp. Alright, so sometimes my brain likes to go into left field with this stuff, and I'm gonna put a disclaimer in front of it of like, what I'm about to say is a stretch, but I like to consider all the angles on something like this. The key component of the sentence that he just said, it means being expendable. Doing what is expected, it means being expendable. I think there is a part of being expendable to Zevran that connects him to his mom. And what I mean by that is that in his mother dying in childbirth, that is a profound example of being expendable just by nature. And because Zevran never got to actually have an interpersonal relationship with his mom, in fact, the very first thing that he probably conceptualizes when he thinks about her is her expendability relative to nature. perhaps there is a level of empathy that he has for her experience by living on the edge and by being an assassin, by being expendable. He gets to empathize with the very last moments of his mom. So to give Zevran purpose and safety is to afford him something that his mother didn't have when she bore him. I know that's way out there, but there is some degree of deep, I don't know what you want to call it, intrapsychic logic to it. And I think it's maybe why he's so comfortable being in this position that he's in. It's why he can talk about this so matter-of-factly, where my character is coming at this from like this, oh my god, that sounds so horrible and intense and blah, 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 blah. And Zevran's like, no, it's cool. I'm down. It's fine. I think I understand.
As for what I'll do in the future, presuming that there is one, I truly can't imagine. It might be interesting to go into business for myself, for a change. Far away from Antiva, of course. For now, naturally, I go where you go.
Happy to have you along.
And here I am, happy to be had. Isn't it wonderful how things work out that way? Come now, enough chit-chat. Talking about the crows summons them, you know. Any Antivan fishwife could tell you so.
+8 on the approval. Alright. Very cool, man.
I was just thinking about what happened to the elves, and I'm reminded of a song sung to me many years ago. It was when my mother died, and this wise elven woman comforted me and told me that we shouldn't fear death or hate it. Death is just another beginning. One day, we must all shed our earthly bodies to allow our spirits to fly free.
God, I hate eternal life, man. I don't want it. I don't want it. It's hard for me to get onto that. I, for one, am in no hurry to let my spirit fly free. That's the honest truth.
It's a beautiful sentiment, I think. One that brings peace and hope to the grieving.
You about to sing? What up, DMCA? Okay, sorry. I gotta turn her down because I don't want to get demonetized and DMCA'd. Oh, Liliana singing songs about our spirits. She's still doing it. It's so beautiful. It's so great. Thank you, Liliana, for singing your song and calming down my dog. Thank you, YouTube, for being here. I appreciate you. Thank you for being on Twitch with me if you're live and listening to this awkward song. A natural pet peeve of mine, or one of the biggest pet peeves of mine in the entire world. I hate Christmas carolers, so when people just randomly break out in song in front of me, it makes me very uncomfortable. So I'm speaking over this, because this is making my insides turn. I'm sure it's a beautiful song. Feel free to go listen to it somewhere on YouTube. Instead, you got to listen to my voice over it, because, you know, DMCA is great, you know. Voice of an angel. I'm very uncomfortable right now. This would be my nightmare. This is my social nightmare. She's just walking around, looking at people in the eye and singing. There are people that do this at restaurants. There are carolers that do this during the holidays. Those of you that do this, I have no idea how you do this. My God. It is just... I went to dinner recently at a place that had a guy who sang, and he walked around, and he would walk up to tables while they were eating and talking, and he'd just start looking at them and singing while he was doing his performance. And it was... I prayed to the Maker that it wouldn't happen to me. I feel like I'm engaging in an interpersonal dynamic I don't consent to when people just break out in song in front of me. Are you done? Oh, I hated that. Hated it.
Yes?
I think you should go. After that whole charade, I think you're out. You need to go. No, I'm not going to do that. It's too much for me. You feel the same about flash mob dances. Hate them. Hate them. Yep, not into it. What the hell was that? Everybody's trying to sleep. Dirk, I'm going to need you to calm down.
Look at what your fool dog placed in my pack. A putrid, half-eaten hare is not something a woman wants to find in her unmentionables.
Oh. Can't be stinkier than what normally goes into them? Are you kidding me? What? BioWare pulled no punches in these dialogue options. Oh my god. What? I think he thinks you need more meat on your... What are we doing? He means well. He's a dog, Morgan. It's a gift. Good God.
The dirty mongrel can have this back. There. And tell him not to do it again.
You heard the lady.
I don't want it, you worthless fur bag.
Oh, Morgan. It's okay if you don't like dogs. I think you hurt his feelings.
Oh, he's just trying to be manipulative, I can tell. I do it too.
Oh man, you know the beauty of that. You know the beauty of that. Dirk, my dog, is a blank template through which people can just throw their projections, and I love Morgan's level of reflection in that projection. He's being manipulative. The only reason I think that psychologically is because that's what I do. I see the same pattern in behavior. It's beautiful. She got a little bit of karma in my bank on that. I absolutely love that. I know how that works. I do it too. Good boy. You're a good boy. Oh. Don't like Sten? I'm just gonna watch him.
You are a true warrior and worthy of respect.
Hell yeah, Dirk. You got Sten's approval. Way to go, buddy. Dirk digs furiously in the ground at your feet. Trying to find a way through the earth, are we? Stop that. You're making a mess. Bad dog. Trying to find a way through the earth, huh? Keep digging, buddy. It'll take some time, you know. Oh, don't be silly. You'll just mess up the campsite. Alright, have fun then. It's gonna take you some time, man. What are you doing? Is there something down there? Good luck, buddy. You're gonna create another rift to the Fade if you keep doing that, Dirk. Alright.
Yes?
I'd like to talk.
Well, here I am.
Oh boy. Just please don't break out in song again. You were a traveling minstrel. Do you have any stories to share?
Of course I do. I love stories far too much to keep them to myself. Everyone should be able to benefit from them, I think.
Okay. I'm so afraid she's gonna sing to me again. You know any Ferelden legends?
I know one, told to me by my mother a long time ago. It always chilled me to the bone. Maybe you have heard of Flemeth?
I have.
Ferelden mothers scare their daughters with talk of Flemeth. They say that if you're bad, Flemeth will spirit you away and bind you to her forever. They also say that Flemeth mourns her lost beauty and will steal yours through your looking glass if she catches you.
Tell me the whole story.
Flemeth's beauty was known throughout the land. She had hair like unto a moonless night, skin as pale as winter's first snow, and eyes as beautiful and perilous as the sea. When she came of age, she came to the attention of the Lord of Highever, Conobar, and he took her for his wife. Conobar soon learned that his young bride had the gift of magic. He kept this a secret, for he feared that she would be taken from him. Flemeth stayed with Conobar for some years, and with his blessing, she practiced her art. And then one day, a young poet named Osen came to the castle. Flemeth was captivated by Osen's voice, and he by her beauty, and they fell in love.
Happened then.
Flemeth longed to be with her true love, and she and Osen fled from Conobar's lands, seeking refuge in the Kokari wilds with the Chasing tribes. They lived there happily for many a year, till the day Flemeth received news that Conobar was dying and longed to see her face one last time. Flemeth's heart swelled with pity for the man who once was her husband, and begged Osen to return to Conobar's side with her. But when Flemeth and Osen entered Highever, they were captured by Conobar's men, and Osen was slain in front of Flemeth's eyes. Flemeth was imprisoned in the highest tower of the castle, there to await Conobar's judgment on her. Distraught at the loss of her love, Flemeth plotted revenge against her husband. She summoned a fey demon, intending for it to wreak vengeance on Conobar. But a spell went awry. The demon possessed Flemeth. Turning her into an abomination, the halls of the castle ran red with blood as Flemeth slaughtered Conobar and all his men. The last of Flemeth's humanity melted away, and at dawn, she stole back to the wilds to plot and scheme for 100 years. They say she took to her side many Chasing men, and with their help, begat her daughter witches, who even now prowl the dark places of the Kokari wilds.
That sounds relatively consistent with what Morgan told us, if I recall correctly. I think. I need to go back and rewatch. I don't totally remember the story as Morgan told it. But it sounds relatively familiar. I mean, that deceit part of it, with Conobar inviting her, first of all... Oh, it's what was in the Codex, okay. Morgan's was totally different. Oh, interesting. Okay, I need to go back and watch that then. I will say this. Here's the important part of this that I want to kind of just talk about is when Flemeth heard news from Conobar that her dying ex-husband wanted to see her face one more time. I think it's awesome that she went to her current guy and told him that and invited him to come with. That's a testament to their relationship. I think that's awesome. When you're in a relationship, you got to be able to do and say the hard stuff. Doesn't mean that they necessarily have to go do that, but Flemeth didn't hide that in that story. She owned it. She said this is what happened. Morgan's was, nope, she was married to Osen all along, but it was the Lord who came along and was like, hey, pretty lady, Mary. Oh, interesting. And then they were poor, so Flemeth agreed. Oh, man. I want to know what Flemeth has to say about it then. You know any stories from Orlais?
Of course, Orlesians enjoy telling stories. I shall tell you my favorite tale of Aveline, the Knight of Orlais.
Please do. Let's go.
A long time ago, a girl child was born to a farmer. He had hoped for a son, not a daughter, and so he told his wife to abandon the child in the woods. Before the cold could claim her, the baby was found by a tribe of Dalish elves who took pity on the poor mewling thing and raised her as their own. Aveline, for that is what they called her, grew strong and quick and clever under the guidance of the elves. She learned to wield the sword as well as any man, could kill a deer with an arrow at 100 paces, and was as graceful on the back of a horse as she was on foot. Aveline's Dalish guardians saw that she could easily best any Orlesian chevalier in battle, and wanted to show the cruel humans the child they had left to die. They bestowed upon her a fine horse and armor, and sent her to prove herself to her people in the grand tourney. Now in those days, no woman was allowed to take up arms, let alone compete in the grand tourney, but Aveline kept her helmet on and was not discovered.
Let's get down to business.
Aveline won many events and gained the approval of the adoring crowd. Eventually, she came face to face with the knight Kaleva in the grand melee. Aveline had already bested him in the joust, and Kaleva was determined not to lose a second time. Out of desperation to regain his honor, Kaleva tripped Aveline and tossed her to the ground, ripping off her helmet as he did so. Silence fell upon the arena as Aveline was revealed. Kaleva declared the previous competitions invalid. A woman had taken part, and this was not allowed. But the crowd cheered for Aveline. Kaleva was furious, for he had lost to a woman and was now being shamed. Blinded by his rage, he forced Aveline to her knees. "Know your place, woman," cried he, and slit her throat.
It happens nowadays too. It's just not as, it's not kneeling in front of you and slicing your throat, but this is the importance of wider societal discourse around things like gender and the power dynamics related to it. You get shit like this. Like when you constantly represent women in this case in a certain way, and you oppress them and you shove them off into corners and you say that they're not capable of doing all these things, and you do that as a way to build up another group, in this case men, and then that entire expectation and schema is violated when there's a woman that comes in and does this. People in positions of power will often retaliate against the anomaly rather than ask themselves perhaps if they are wrong in their assessment of things. And it comes from a sense of insecurity. And it comes from a place of you have been told that your worth in this case as a man is in your brawn and in your strength. It is a very myopic view. So when a woman comes along and tarnishes that, where we have a myopic view of women as being less than, your entire sense of masculinity has been destroyed by this woman overpowering you. When in reality, the way that we would want to look at it is to say, wow, this is really badass. We should get more women in the ranks if they're able to kick our ass. Unfortunately, with propping others up, that often means that you have to reduce some of the advantages that you have as the dominant group. And a lot of times the dominant group doesn't want to do that. They don't want to forego some of the advantages they have, because to invite women into the ranks and see them as capable in this space is to now open ourselves up to, well, what else are men capable of? That could be a beautiful conversation, but when you've had a very myopic view of what men are and what they're supposed to be, that becomes a very hard conversation to enter. So that entire exchange in that story is a reflection of the wider societal discourse and dynamics as it relates to gender and power imbalances. And those are things that are perpetuated by men, in this case. And now, that's terrible.
The son of the king, Prince Freyan, was present. He recognized Avelin's skill and bravery and began to see the injustice done to the women in his land. When he was made king, he rewrote the laws of Olay so that women could also become chevalier. He honored Avelin and knighted her after her death. And to this day, any female who is knighted reveres Avelin the Brave, for she is the patron of all women chevalier.
Awesome. And I'm glad that the focus, at least I would hope, the focus is on her, not on the prince for changing the law. Because that's a law that should, like, it's a bullshit dynamic that shouldn't have existed in the first place. So he's not a hero for bringing it back to where it should be. So I'm glad that it goes back to her. Don't know that I, like the idea of... It sucks. That whole thing sucks. Alright, tell me about the Darkspawn. But hey, if it led to change, that's awesome. Like, she created that. Her hard work, her showing up in that context, is the reason that law got changed. He pulled the trigger on it, but we don't want to overly attribute that to the guy here. And by the guy, I mean I don't know the guy's name. I can't remember it. You're not a hero for bringing things up to the bare minimum.
Chantry law says it is man's pride that created the Darkspawn. In ages past, the mages of the Tevinter Imperium ruled much of the world we know. In their pride, they thought their magics invincible and imagined that they were greater than the Maker himself. So thinking, they invaded his golden city, planning to take it for themselves and depose their own creator. But they were impure and full of sin. And it is with the sin that they tainted the golden city, corrupting it forever. The Maker cursed them and cast them from his sight. Wherever they went, they spread the taint of their sin. Any land that was touched by the taint became blighted and would suffer no life. Instead, the Darkspawn arose to torment us and remind us of our hubris.
Such a little kid. I can't hear her say the word taint and not laugh. It's so hard. Oh, man. All right. It's another one I want to hear. You know anything about the Dalish?
I have heard a little about how the elves gained their freedom from the Tevinter Imperium. When Andraste began her exalted march against the Imperium, the elves joined her cause to fight their masters. The great elven leader, Shatan, born in captivity,
unfortunate name,
rose up to lead his people. He foresaw a future where the elves were free. Shatan was killed when Andraste was betrayed, but the elves continued to fight, eventually breaking free of the Imperium. The elves claimed the Dales in the south and settled there in a land of their own. The elves lived in the Dales for centuries. They resurrected the worship of the elven gods and would allow the building of no chantry. This angered the chantry, and the hostility between the two factions finally broke out in open war. The chantry says the elves struck first, but I do not know whether to believe it. The chantry declared a wholly exalted march against the elves, named for Andraste's similar march against Tevinter. During the exalted march of the Dales, the elven cities were sacked, and the elven state completely dissolved. Some of the elves bitterly accepted their fates and surrendered to human rule, living in the human cities as second-class citizens. But others, still fiercely proud of their heritage, refused to bow to the humans, and instead became homeless wanderers. They were the elves of the Dales, the Dalish. Andraste was the Maker's chosen. The Maker had long since abandoned the world when the sound of her singing turned his ear. Beauty, grace, and wisdom enraptured him, and he offered to take her from this flawed world to become his divine bride. But Andraste had an earthly husband and would not forsake him. Instead, she beseeched the Maker to return to his people once more. So earnest was her plea that the Maker was moved and promised that he would create a paradise on earth if all abandoned their false gods and turned once more to him. And this is why Andraste began her exalted march on the idolaters of the Tevinter Imperium. The Maker granted her his powers with which to smite her enemies. Andraste brought the Imperium to its knees, and her victories converted many to the worship of the Maker.
I'm sure they did. How did Andraste die?
Alas, it was the frailties of men that betrayed and killed Andraste. Her earthly husband, Maferath, a chieftain of the Alamari tribes himself, grew jealous as his wife's popularity and influence overshadowed his own. She was also revered as the Maker's betrothed, and Maferath began to see their own bond waning in significance as Andraste became ever more devoted to the Maker. Out of envy and spite, Maferath made a pact with the Archon Hysarian of Tevinter, allowing his beloved Andraste to be ambushed and captured. Andraste was burned at the stake in Minrathous, the capital of Tevinter.
Why did the Maker not save her with his power?
I have thought on this too. Did he withdraw his sight from her at that moment? Where were all the powers he bestowed upon her? This question has come to me many times, and I have no answer. Perhaps there was no way for Andraste to return to the Maker but through her death. We will never know for sure.
Maybe the Maker's a bullshitter. And we just allow so much of the Maker to just be. Frustrates me to see the lack of critical thought around the Maker. Like maybe, just maybe, all of these things that happen are... Oh, God. Okay, I'm not going to diatribe on that. Y'all know where I'm at with it. Talk to Morgan.
What do you wish of me? We are in camp, so 'tis as good a time as any.
Why are you still here?
I am here because Flemeth commanded me to aid you. Why? Do you wish me to leave? I can do so if you prefer.
No, I don't want you to leave. Do you want to... I have to decide if her answer is satisfactory in the sense of, like, is the fact that she's here because of Flemeth, is that a good enough reason? I mean, it's a good enough reason for her. I don't really know why it shouldn't be a good enough reason for me. Like, do I need it to be about more than that? I don't know. Do you want to leave? I feel like, see, to me, that question is so loaded. Because that question is basically me saying to her, I am perceiving your behavior as being indicative of a lack of interest in being here. Which is essentially me saying, like, you're being antagonistic, you don't seem to be interested in working with people, yada, yada, yada. If that's the case, I should just say that instead of asking, do you want to leave? You should always think about the statements behind your questions. Because that's what I'm saying when I ask her that, I think. You think maybe no one has asked her what she wants before? Probably. I'm guessing that's not a question that's familiar to her. I don't get a sense that that's a question that Flemeth asked. Or if Flemeth asked it, it was probably asked in a very, like, weird, philosophical, ambiguous way that only stirred up a bunch of confusion. So she asked me if I wanted to... I don't want her to leave. I'm fine with her staying, but I'm not taking you on diplomatic journeys, I can tell you that.
Then I assume our discussion ends here.
You are correct. Morgan disapproves. Whoa! I didn't realize me saying no, I don't want you to leave is a command.
What do you wish of me? We are in camp, so 'tis as good a time as any. I am here because Flemeth commanded me to aid you.
This is interesting. It lets me ask her again.
Do you wish me to leave? I can do so if you prefer.
I'm going to headcanon this a little bit. Because that's a little bit weird. It's not a command. Like, hey, me saying I don't want you to leave doesn't mean that you don't have any autonomy here. Me saying that I don't want you to leave means I'm okay with you being here. I'm not sitting here thinking to myself, you should get out of here. But I would like to know whether you want to leave.
If I wanted to leave, then I would go. I remain, so do not ask such pointless questions.
Morgan disapproves. Jesus, Morgan. Okay, hold on. I gotta pee. I'll be right back. I got anxiety pee after that conversation. Jeez. Maybe she's disapproving of her initial question rather than your response. That's fair. That's very fair. I mean, I'm not necessarily trying to like gain her favor. I just find it very interesting that she's not particularly fond of that question.
If you must.
Okay, we're done. We're done talking to Morgan. Okay, cool. Now that that's all squared up. Isn't that why are you still here rather aggressive? I don't think so. I think that question very much depends on the way you ask it. If you ask that question by saying, why are you still here? That implies more. If you ask like, hey, why are you still here? We'll see. But it's fine. I mean, if she said if she wants to leave, she wants to leave. She'll leave. So, okay, cool. I don't disagree with that. Gather your party and venture forth. All right, Zathrien. Now, what's interesting about this is I don't know that I want to bring 2 rogues with me, but
yes.
Sten. Not bringing Sten. Boy, now where do we go? Oh boy, do we return to Denerim? You know what? Before I leave, let's take a look here at what we have to do. Go to the region marked on your map to determine the status of the conscripts of the company East Hill. Find the deserters. Arl of Redcliffe. Yeah, we still have to get Arl Eamon awake. Gain Orzamar's aid in battling the Blight. You need to travel deep underground. Circle of Magi is a powerful group. They are at Lake Calenhad. Travel to Soldiers Pass, where a troubled merchant awaits a deal that may just be too good to be true. Levy offered to take you through the maze of tunnels that lead to the Grey Warden base of Soldier's Peak. He wishes to uncover proof that his ancestor, Sophia Dryden, was a hero his family always thought she was. There are rumors that a fellow survivor of Ostagar has escaped from the prisons of Ban Lorn and is seeking the aid of Grey Wardens. The band's lands lie in the northwest reaches of Banorn. The escaped prisoner has likely taken refuge in the deep woods of the estate. I'm sort of interested in that. You know there's another Grey Warden? That seems like it could be super useful. Oh, we have to find Genitivi and Denerim. Ooh. I kind of want to go get this other Grey Warden. To me, that seems like a really good strategic move. Get another Grey Warden who can... So I'm not the lone Grey Warden who has to make the call in terms of, like, representing what's happened. Yeah, the Arl is still not doing well. Go to Banloran's land in Benorn.
Indeed. Yes.
Yes.
The densely wooded lands provide much of the timber used in the region. I say we make our way over to that guy. Denerim, oh boy.
Sire, I have more news. Yes. Well, it seems that the fighting has gone
Enough.
exactly as you...
I would like to know what you intend to accomplish, Father. Should we not be fighting the Darkspawn instead of each other?
The nobility should be brought into line and then the Darkspawn defeated. This is no true blight, Honora. Only Kaelin's vanity demanded it be so.
Beg pardon, sire. But blight or no, we may not have the manpower to face the Darkspawn soon.
Kaelin approached your legions for support, did he not?
Never! Marek and I drove those bastards out! Not roll out the welcome for them now!
We need help, Father. We cannot deal with this crisis alone.
Ferelden will stand on its own! I will lead it through this, Honora. You must have faith in me.
Did you kill Kaelin?
Kaelin's death was his own doing.
Remember, she's the queen. He's just the Queen Regent. Take a closer look at the unarmed man. Take a closer look at the guards. Join the fray. Wait for the guards to leave. Closer look at the guards. The guards wear a uniform of Banloran, a minor lord well known and little loved for the fluidity of his allegiances. You are surprised to recognize the uniform of King Kaelin's honor guard. A memory comes to you. You fought alongside this man at Ostagar. I'm going to observe. You are surprised to recognize the uniform. Well, we were just assessing the situation. Bum 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 ba da 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 da. Yikes. All right. Well, not great. Up close, the man's face is unmistakable. You remember him as Elric Margain, a member of Kaelin's honor guard at Ostagar and a close confidant of the king. Oh, you still doing okay?
Thank you. I didn't expect the band's men to notice my escape so quickly. I tried to hide here in the woods, but there wasn't time. And now I'm a dead man.
You're not dead yet.
You were there in Ostagar. You know how things went. For me, it was either this, or die in some darkspawn's belly, or be hung as a deserter.
Yeah, I recognize you.
You were there with the Grey Wardens, one of Duncan's new recruits. I was to guard the king. He was my friend, understand? Maker. All that time in Ban Loren's prison. And I couldn't stop thinking about all they suffered that one dark night at Ostagar.
Can't wait here all day listening to you whine. I don't think that he's blaming himself for the fact that they died. We don't always get to choose our deaths. That is certainly a true statement.
No, perhaps not. But I've been given the chance to set things right. If it's the likes of you who sees me to my final hour, perhaps things happen for a reason. The king entrusted me with the key to the royal arms chest. If anything were to happen to him, he said, it was vital I deliver it to the Wardens.
Is chest important? Do you still have the key? You have the key.
The Maker has a sense of humor, doesn't he? I suppose it's for the best, however. Had I kept it, it would be in Ban Loren's hands by now.
Why am I not surprised? Is there someone else we should be bringing back from the brink of death instead?
I was afraid. I thought I would lose it on the battlefield, so I stashed it in the camp. Please. It's probably still there.
Hey, good foresight, man. Where did you stash it in the camp?
The key's behind a loose stone at the base of a statue. I'll draw a map for you, so you'll know where to search.
You'll be taking me along, won't you? Call me sentimental, but I left behind some dark spawn that really deserve a sword through the middle.
It is vital that the king's documents do not fall into the wrong hands. As for Marik's sword, it is too powerful to be pawed at by those monsters. Same for the king's other arms and armor. And if you happen to find Kaelin's body, see it off. He was our king. He shouldn't be left to rot amidst the Darkspawn's filth.
You shouldn't be left alone amongst the Darkspawn's filth, is that man's last words. Oof. I love that. You get a codex page and it's the credits. That's awesome. Man, poor guy. Alright, well. I'm kind of amazed he made it that long. Whoa, wait, we're gonna travel all the way to Ostagar? Damn. Drew a map with the blood that was dripping from his sword wound. Alright, I guess we're going to Ostagar. Darkspawn. Oh man, look how strong we all are now that we're healed up. What a world of difference.
Got to hand it to the Darkspawn. They sure know how to make a place feel desolate and foreboding.
They do indeed. What's going on here? What's this? Just dead frozen ghosts? Square blood? Been a while since we were in Ostagar, though. Hell, where do I go? Everything's boarded up, guys. Oh, there's a rock behind the statue. Where? Okay. Rock. Statue. Maybe. No. God. Golly. Alright, we're gonna go this way then. I'm gonna have to check every statue, aren't I? More darkspawn in here. Dead guys. Hey, what's up, guys? Okay, we gotta get rid of this guy. Throwing these low polygon spells at us. You dead. Now. Stuff. Chainmail boots, not necessary. You can't be throwing low poly spells at me. That's unacceptable. Aelin's Greaves. Ooh. Made with red steel.
I don't know whether to laugh or cry, but it's clearly Kaelin's. There can be no doubt.
Does that mean that darkspawn was Kaelin, or that he just took his shoes? Alistair, give you these. Gotta be the shoe. I mean, just took Kaelin's Air Jordans. How would Alistair feel if you made him wear Kaelin's armor? I don't know. We'd have to ask him. I've got to imagine that that would be a pretty tough gig, though. Oh, wow. Dude, we can go touch the joining chalice?
Yes.
Ash Warrior Axe. Might be better than what Alistair is currently holding. Anna, what do I want to give you? Give you some constitution, we'll give you some strength. Give you some dexterity. Let's get that lockpicking's up to a 2. She needs 18 cunning in order to get lockpicking up. Hold tight. Joining chalice. I'll bet if I give that to Alistair, he would be quite appreciative of it.
Used to this.
+9. Cool. Yeah, thought so. Very cold and dingy. Alright. Bring it on. very strong party now. This is awesome. Whoa! Yeah. I sent some darkspawn. Nice, Alistair. Way to go, bud. Ooh, Zevran, you doing all right, buddy? Nice job, team. Good go. Please, please, Liliana, yes! And all there's in there is ice arrows. Damn. But hey, we got a lock open. Journeyman Silverite Rune. You can maybe use that for some enchantment, I'm guessing? I don't really know how runes work. I think you have to go to the enchantment guy. Finally picked a lock, and all I got were these stupid ass ice arrows. It's seriously. I'm building this up for how long? Eldrick's buried key. Key to the Royal Arms chest. Got it. Hell yeah. I'm about to be decked out in the King's armor, and that's going to be really rough for Alistair, I think, to see. Tie a lot of sentiment to objects, and I can totally see Alistair being... I hate that noise. What is that noise? What the hell? Oh, they're rogues. That's why that happened. Dude, there's like a dragon or an ogre or something around here. Oh no, Dead Mabari. Got another collar for Dirk. Oh boy. Runner war paint. Cool. Ooh, blight wolves. Stuff.
Yes.
Warlock Vanguard, Kaelin's shield. Oh, baby. +1 armor, +20 chance to avoid missile attacks. This is really good, and well, and it's less than the current shield I'm using. I mean, I like the shield I'm currently using, but Kaelin's shield may actually be a better route here. Cool ass shield too, and then Alistair can have my, because that's a one-handed sword. Alistair can have that shield. Yeah, we're gonna be decked out in Kaelin's stuff. This is rough. This would be a very difficult thing to do, given, like... So I do want to talk really quickly about the experience that this would be like, potentially, from a trauma perspective. There was a lot of expectations violated in this area. A lot. We got wrecked by the Darkspawn in a way that we weren't ready for. Loghain turned on Kaelin. And all of the motion was set, like, everything was set forth after this. So this place quite literally symbolically represents the journey we're on and all of the awfulness that has happened since. And we were there for it. Well, as all of this has happened, our brains, all of us, was paying attention to the environment, to the things that were in it, to all of the things that it could associate with the anomalous experience we were having that was in direct violation to our expectations. We saw Duncan murder that guy when he didn't drink from the chalice. Yeah. And we saw that guy drink from the chalice and die. We had a moment where we took a sip of Darkspawn blood and didn't know if we were going to survive. Yeah, I mean, there's just so much that happened here. Coming back to it, a lot of people think that this would be good for trauma. That you come back here, you get to reclaim it. Only kind of. You have to really scaffold this moment. It is not enough to just go back to a traumatic spot and go, okay, cool, I survived, I'm good. That generally doesn't work. We would be doing huge amounts of preparation for this. We would be talking about figuring out what narratives we created post-Ostagar, how much of that we personalized, what were the actual traumatic aspects of that, what are the expectations that we were forced to change as a result of our experience at Ostagar. This is not exposure therapy for trauma. This, in fact, would likely be re-traumatizing without being ready for this, because the sensory overload on your brain, seeing all of the things that you associated with it, smelling all of the things that you associated with it, touching and feeling the things that you associated with it, your brain is going to go, oh my God, it's going to happen again. Even though you might logically know that you're not in real danger, although in some ways you are, because there are literally Darkspawn here. So even the enemy itself is here. This would be enough to potentially lead a person to crumble, to dissociate. This could lead to all sorts of trauma responses that would be completely involuntary. So without proper preparation, this would actually be a really dangerous task, and we would be in real peril and at real risk of potentially dying to Darkspawn here because of our brain's attempts to try to make sense of what's going on here and to try to fight through it. And it'd be to our detriment because it takes a lot of energy. Now, you could shut it down, completely dissociate, fight your way through waves of Darkspawn, and then get to the end of it and be like, I don't really even know how I got here. I mean, there's an infinite amount of possibilities for this. But I do want to just kind of call our attention to this, that this isn't exposure therapy for trauma. This isn't necessarily a good thing that we're here. Now, conversely, I do want to say that there is a ability to reclaim a place like this with that work. That you could work through some level of desensitization to this, that you could reclaim it. That reclamation requires a massive degree of intention. Meaning that as we go through this, we are consistently authoring our new narrative about this place. We are talking through the emotional experience that's happening as we're here. We're sitting and taking time to pause and to reflect on that emotional experience. We are creating a narrative that is more empowering relative to that emotional experience. We are looking for all the ways in which we are in control of this experience, all the ways in which this experience is different from what our expectations are that are built off of our previous experience with this. We are doing immense amount of cognitive work to try to override some of the autopilot experiences that we would have by being here. And we would be reflecting at every step of the way, so that by the end of this, it does feel like something we reclaimed. It is something that I took back into control, that I've reintegrated into my expectations of the world, into Ostagar, into myself, so that this was a very healing experience, albeit a painful one. A lot of times people think that this healing experience is one that should just feel good and relieving, and it doesn't always feel that way. It's actually very hard work. It's very painful work. It's work that you have to be ready for, and you got to have an outsider to help you with, because putting the onus on yourself to reprocess this, like a 1 in 100 chance that you're going to be the person that can do that. You're going to need somebody who knows what they're doing in this kind of moment. So don't always just jump right back to your point of trauma. That includes both physically and mentally. There's a lot of preparation that we have to do around this stuff in order to get there, in order to do it right. Trauma work is not quick work. Trauma work is work that takes a long time to work through. And that's the unfair proposition of it. But this could be a huge moment in that recovery, and in that, or not recovery, but in the process of learning to like manage a life where trauma is something that has happened to you in a profound way. Would the quest they are on itself be scaffolding? It could be, depending on how intentional we are with how we process it as it's happening. Is what you're describing actual triggering? So triggering itself is an involuntary response you have to a certain stimulus that is unrelated to the actual thing that created the trigger. So this could be, and sometimes it is related, but like in this case, yes, could it be triggering to come back to Ostagar? For sure. And what the trigger in this moment would be all of the compensation mechanisms that our brain had in the time that we were in Ostagar. So if we dissociated in Ostagar as a means to just mentally check out from it so that we didn't have to pay attention to it, that very well could happen here, because there's enough circumstance and environmental factors here that our brain goes, no, we're here again? No way, man. And it's an involuntary process. There's all sorts of things that could absolutely trigger a trauma response here. And this is also an obligatory moment for me to say that you can experience trauma and not develop PTSD. You can still experience significant fallout, you can experience triggers, you can experience stuff like that without meeting the full diagnostic criteria for PTSD. And that doesn't invalidate the effect that your trauma had on you. And sometimes people think that you have to be diagnosed with PTSD in order for your trauma to be valid. That's not true. Boy, this is heavy. The Darkspawn have done their best to defile the bonfire where Duncan kept his nightly watch. Perhaps they still sense something of the man's power. Maybe. I don't know. I don't have very good memories of Duncan, so this is a really interesting thing. Like, Alistair, I think, is the one who's probably going to struggle the most. And I think that this is probably... I think this is probably a good place for us to finish for the night. And that way, in part 11, we can pick up from Ostagar here. I think we're going to have a lot of processing to do in part 11. So I want to give people a chance to kind of, prepare a little bit for what part 11 is going to be like. Because I think there's going to be some heaviness, some reflection, some grief talk. We're going to have a lot of good stuff coming at us. So those of you that are here on YouTube, thank you so much for watching the video on YouTube. I hope that you leave a like and a comment potentially on your way out. If there's anything that you would like to share relative to your experience of watching the stream, I'd love to hear it. I hope that my analysis and my thoughts in some ways were stimulating to you. I imagine they were, since you've made it all the way to the end. But thank you so much for taking the time out of your day or night to watch these streams and to support what I do. It really means a lot. I don't claim to be right on all of my analysis. I'm just doing my best to see what I got. I don't have the ability to actually like actually talk to these characters in the way that I would normally do it. So I work with what I have, and I appreciate that you all support me doing the best I can with this information to try to make it somewhat relatable to the real world. So if you're binging this series, I'll see you right away in part 11. If you are watching these episodically, as always, I'll see you the next time that it drops. And feel free to come hang out with us on Twitch in the meantime. Appreciate you all very much. I'll catch you on the next one.